Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about self-doubt. I have the pleasure to converse with Justina Beth-El, founder of the Valkyrie Solutions and business coach, practitioner, also singer and songwriter, passionate about helping others and advocate for victims and survivors of sexual abuse and domestic abuse. It's such an honor to have you here today, Justina.
Thank you for having me, Francesca. I'm so excited to be here.
It is also awesome, in my opinion, to talk about self-doubt because it's something I personally have struggled with in my life. So I know we talked before about this and how it is almost like a common thread that you see as a coach. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my career, my corporate career, I've always been in spaces that have been very much male dominated. And I've seen repeatedly where self-doubt shows up as a reflection of I'm not good enough. I don't deserve to be here. And especially among women, right,
Mhm.
in these spaces. So after, more than a decade in this corporate arena where I went from being a very small peon at the beginning stages to being a corporate executive, I noticed continuously that there was also a lack of representation in leadership, which is a contributing factor to self-doubt for people who are starting at the bottom. I don't belong here because there's nobody at the top that looks like me, sounds like me, acts like me, believes like me.
Mhm.
And I kind of took it on as my own personal mission to invest in those people who were technically my subordinates, but they were earlier versions of me. I could see myself in them, and I could see that all they needed was somebody to be their champion, to be like, no, you know exactly what you're doing. You belong here. You deserve the right compensation because you're doing the work for this role. And what I found when they receive that sort of validation, that recognition, just the affirmation that they are powerful within their own right, not because I said so,
Mm.
we all got better. We all thrived. And that ended up being a disseminating belief system. So their subordinates started to see a reflection of that from them to their subordinates. And eventually I left the corporate space because once you get to the top and the owner of the company is, the last sort of barrier in your glass ceiling, if you will, there's not a lot of wiggle room. And I realized, this space is no longer big enough for me. And I started bringing that same energy into the work that I do now, which is consulting women and minority-owned businesses on how to get into the government contracting space. And a lot of them are in their infancy, where they don't know how to price their services. They don't know how to set boundaries for the time they're spending, the effort and the energy and the resources they're committing to jobs. And I love being the champion there as well. So in all of these different arenas, I've found that the missing ingredient is really audacity. The antidote to self-doubt is audacity. And the reason I started digging into the word audacity itself is I've seen so many things in social media where it's like, oh, the audacity of so and so, or how dare they, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this message that's kind of attached to it of how dare you, right? Whereas the term audacity actually just means the willingness to take bold risks. And as women, we are often told, how dare you be willing to take a bold risk? How dare you think you have space here? So that is, the perfect antidote for self-doubt. It's like, yeah, absolutely, I have the audacity and I want to bring that with me wherever I go, lead through it, live through it, be audacity. So that's the major I don't want to use the word antidote again, but it's the major fixer for self-doubt that I've found. And I'm building my brand and my work around that.
That's wonderful. Audacity brings a big smile to my face because just recently, I don't remember if you were part of this, but our mentor Kim had an Audacity challenge. And I found myself invited on the podcast a YouTuber, content creator. Yeah, we did an episode, is I think episode 8. So I had the audacity. He came for a session and on Zoom talking to us. And I just blurted out, if you'd like to share your message on my podcast, you're welcome to. And it happened. And I'm like, wow, things are really possible. The other thing that I have been battling with is those voices inside that tells me, no, you're not good enough. Why would you even be audacious? You don't have the skills, like singing in front of people. Why would you do that? So, what would be a suggestion for your recommendation for people who are struggling with those self beliefs that are so self destructive at times?
You kind of answered it yourself, and I love what you said. Wow, this is really possible, right? We have to do the opposite of what our fear is telling us. And this is rooted in dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT for short, where you take actions that are opposite of the feelings and the cognition that's telling you you're not good enough, telling you don't deserve it. And then as you see the results of you showing up in the opposite way, you are falsifying that internal belief. So you have to act against, in opposition to what those stories are, what that little voice in the back of your mind that's telling you, I don't belong here. They're not going to say yes to coming onto my podcast. I shouldn't be singing in front of people. Once you do the opposite of what that voice is telling you to do, of the person that voice is telling you to stifle, once you show up as that person, you'll see reinforcement from your environment that no, that's exactly where you should be and who you should be. So my number one recommendation is to do the opposite of that. But before we can do the opposite of that, we have to know that these thoughts are not us. We have to be able to identify them when they appear in the moment. And that is a whole other animal and takes a lot of time and self-awareness to detach yourself from those thoughts and those feelings. So that's one of the first things that I teach is to redefine power on your own terms, right? And for women, again, especially, we are taught that power looks like the kind of power that men exhibit because it is still relatively recent that we are allowed in these spaces. I mean, it's within the past 100 years that we've been allowed to be in these spaces. So we're still dismantling the idea that everything is male by default. Leadership is male by default. To be a leader, you have to show up the way a man would lead, right? So the first thing in redefining power is to understand the definition of power that we hold for ourselves. And one of my favorite studies was conducted by the Rutgers University Research Group, where they surveyed 310 professionals, men and women alike, and asked them what the definition of power was to them, what power looks like to them. And repeatedly, for men, it showed up as power over, it showed up as control and dominance. Whereas women who, when they were asked to define power, said the same thing, that said it looks like that. When they were asked to describe a moment where they felt the most powerful, repeatedly they said they felt freedom and they felt collaboration was part of that moment. And we see when people are autonomous, when they are able to make their own decisions and lead by trusting what they know, what their experience is, and how they believe they should lead, and they get to collaborate with others, everyone rises, everyone does better. So it's multi-layered, it's very much an onion, but the first thing is starting with what we understand power to be and understanding and claiming the power that we hold.
Beautifully put. I love the idea of freedom because I have experienced it. And it is freeing to be able to say, I stand firm in what are my beliefs, my expectation of myself, not other people's expectations of who I need to be and how I need to be and what roles I can have in life.
Yeah.
And that is very freeing. It's liberating to be able to express yourself and to be developing to your fullest potential, and not being crippled by your own fears or what people labels you with or the idea that other people have of you. So that is wonderful. And I just feel already, empowered by that, just the idea.
Good.
Gosh, yeah,
Good.
so freeing. Let's do this. So what could be a method, a strategy, or a framework? Do you have one that you created that you find very helpful with your clients?
Absolutely. So I have a group container. It's called the A Suite, where A is for audacity. And it's a 12-week program. And we go through different stages of first, again, defining power, understanding what's ours and what's not, and then taking what we want to with us. But then it is practicing different actions, like the opposite action with dialectical behavioral therapy that I mentioned, or different somatic practices, or different ways to show up in certain rooms to project that confidence that we go through over that 12-week period. And we implement. It's not just, we're hyping each other up in this virtual container and then go be free in the wild. Good luck. But we have challenges. So each week it might be, today and every day for the rest of the week, you're not allowed to apologize. Obviously, this doesn't count if you've actually hurt somebody, but with women, we lead with apology. We say, I'm so sorry. You may have already said this, but can you answer? No, just ask the question, right? Once we start removing those things, just apologizing for being present from our identity as leaders, as people in the workplace or in our families or in our religious communities, whatever it is and wherever it is, when we start removing that belief that we have to apologize just for being present, we start to see changes in how we show up for ourselves. And I don't want to give it all away. It is a well-researched and structured program, but it has to do a lot with self-awareness and putting that power back in the hands of the women. It's not, hey, this is the old belief of power that you had. This is the new one you need to have. And I'm telling you, this is the only definition of power. No, everyone in the group defines power for themselves. Everyone in the group defines the area where they feel like they are stifled. They address that. It's not a one size fits all program. It's how do you want to show up as a leader? Because you are the expert in yourself. You are the expert in your own leadership style. You are the expert in your environment. So it's really about emboldening women to acknowledge and then activate the power that's already there. It's giving them permission to give themselves permission to be exactly who they are.
Fantastic. And you said it's a 12-week program?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's also very helpful because it's not too long. Sometimes you have those programs that can be a few months or, more than 6 months or whatever, a whole year. Sometimes it find hesitation in embarking in such a long program. But 12 weeks, it's I think the right time frame to see progress and to show yourself you're committed to that. So what could people find more information about this? And of course, about you or your coaching business?
Absolutely. And thank you. Thank you for those kind words. I do think that it does because this is identity work. 12 weeks is kind of like the sweet spot where we're not taking over people's lives, but it also does take time. You're shedding earlier versions of yourself. But my whole business is at valkyrieus.com. From there, I have a page for the A Suite itself, and it's valkyrieus.com/the A Suite. And there's dashes in between it. I'll send you the link and everything, but that's where they can find me. I also am on TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn. It's all Justina Beth_EL. And TikTok is where I do most of my advocacy, most of my work around audacity and things of that nature. So those are the best platforms to find me.
Fantastic. And yes, I will be able to then put the links you share with me in the description of this episode so people can access them easily. I'm so grateful for you to take the time today to chat with me and such an important topic.
Thank you, Francesca. Thank you again for having me. I enjoy talking to you so much.
Absolutely. It's been a joy. And I hope that people who are listening will realize that they have a great opportunity here to invest a little more and look into these links that we'll be posting and at least ponder on the thought that there's ways that you can indeed empower yourself and be the person you're called or want to be. So, as always, I'd like to remind people to take care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit, and breathe, smile, and do something to soothe yourself today.